My name is Varan Karunanantham. I'm here from iConnect Mortgages, and I have TJ from iInspect GTA. Thank you for being here, TJ.
Thank you for inviting me.
A lot of people don't understand the value of home inspection. They look at, oh, we can have a family member walk through. We know what we are doing. Why do you need a home inspector to inspect a home before you firm up on a deal?
There's a lot of different reasons for that. There's even where I'm doing an inspection, I have a family member who brings a friend.
Home
right?
inspector?
Yeah, who brings their own home inspector friend, right? So it's just somebody that, is a handy guy or somebody that's been in trades or construction. And, they know, they have knowledge in things. But then even me, just by looking at things, I'm not able to determine everything, right? So I have tools and thermal imaging cameras and air quality testers. So these are things that I need in order to perform my work properly and more thoroughly. So just by visually looking, it doesn't get you can't get the job done by it. It at least most of it, you can't get it done. So hiring a home inspector, I'm a good home inspector is trained to look at a lot of things that a normal person doesn't see.
Yeah.
Right? You might be just looking at the wall, but I might be looking at like the corners or caulking around or something like that, right? So most people, when they're walking, they hear a creak in the floor and then they think it's a big thing. It's not. It's just usually settlement, right? So those are minor things that sometimes people make into a big thing, but there's a lot more that might be concerning, like foundational issues and deal breakers, right? Those are the main things that people want to know, so they know whether to proceed with the property or not.
Perfect. So, what's the biggest deal breaker in the home inspection?
The biggest deal breaker, honestly, it depends on the client as well. I've had structural issues where people were completely fine with it because they're like, oh, we have people in construction or we have this, and I do renovations myself, so I know exactly what to do and I can redo this. So there's people like that where usually foundational issues are one, they're expensive, two, they're deal breakers. And then I have people that will walk away from a property because there's mold in it, and as soon as they hear the word mold, they get all freaked out and panic. But I find mold in probably about 25% of the properties that I inspect. I find mold. So mold is very common, and sometimes it's just lack of maintenance. Sometimes there's no insulation somewhere. It can be something as simple as just condensation that's occurring over and over, and you're not doing something about it. Sometimes you can get rid of condensation with something as simple as installing a dehumidifier.
Okay.
So mold is something that a lot of people get spooked out about, but it is very common. It is, treatable, and it's not extremely expensive. Unless you go into a house and the entire house is full of mold, then we got an issue. But like, I haven't walked into a house like that. Maybe I've done like almost 9,000 inspections in my 13-year career.
How many of the houses has fully mold?
Like something like that, I would say maybe 2 houses that I went in and I'm just like, holy shit, right? Like,
you should be buying this house.
Yeah, okay, this is like almost a gut, or it's rotting and everywhere, right? Okay. So just to be in there is not really the safest thing, trying to breathe that same air. But that's like maybe 2 houses where it's like that bad. All the other ones, like, you find mold. The most common areas of mold is the attic, right? And most people genuinely don't know that they have mold because they don't go in their attic, right? I haven't been in my own attic in a couple of years.
You may have mold in
I may have mold in my house. I don't even know. And I'm an inspector. I don't go in my own attic. So most of the time, people they don't even know that there's mold in the attic. And if there is mold in the attic, depending how bad it is, it can cost somewhere between like $2,000 to like $4,000 to fully remediate it professionally with a mold remediation certificate. So it's not, a crazy amount. It is fixable. And it's and people sometimes they'll just give you a price reduction and say, okay, you do it yourself, right? So that's something that people do all the time because they may not be okay with the seller fixing it because they don't know how they're gonna fix it.
They want to fix them by themselves.
Yeah, right. So like for me, I would be like, but there's certain times like a seller doesn't know who it is, and they'll be like, hey, do you guys know somebody? And then I recommend them my guys that I work with. So I'll say, if these guys do it, I'm gonna be happy because I've done a
It's
lot of
been
business
done,
with
yeah.
them. They've done like 200 plus mold remediations for me. So if they do it, I'm comfortable, and then I'll tell my buyer like it's okay.
Yeah.
But people, they want to usually use their own people because
Yeah.
conflict, right, and confidence.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's another thing. So mold, foundation issues, those are usually the two main things. I mean, plumbing and electrical, it's usually always fixable. It's nothing crazy. The other thing is like water penetration in the basement.
Okay.
Right, when there's water.
What is exactly?
penetrating
I had
into-
no idea. What does that mean?
So basically, water coming into the basement from outside.
Okay, so
Right? The
that's
water
where you
leaking
put the
in.
sump pump?
So no, sump pump is only if there's like water coming from underneath the house,
Underneath the
right?
house, okay.
So this could be like foundation crack or something where water's coming in and flooding the basements, right? So something like that. Newer houses, it's a little bit cheaper to remediate. It's just like an epoxy injection. You fill the crack. It comes with like a 20-year warranty.
That's where you do the waterproofing, I guess, right?
Yeah, so that's where it gets expensive.
Yeah.
Because now, if you have to do complete waterproofing around the entire house, now they have to dig around the entire house like 8 or 9 feet deep and like 2 feet wide. That you're probably looking at like $20,000, $30,000
Worth of
depending
job.
how big the house is.
Okay.
So those are also deal breakers where there's water coming in, they don't know where it's coming from, or we find it, but only way to fix it is now excavation and waterproofing. So. Those are also deal breakers.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the mold. That's the biggest issue. Even some tenants get scared away from the mold, but they don't understand. It's like a maintenance is one of the biggest reasons. What I find personally dealing with, you guided me through as well. It's a maintenance.
It's maintenance. Yeah, it's usually maintenance. Sometimes mold grows because there's no insulation in the attic, and then it's just heat's rising, and then in the wintertime it's cold up there, so it turns into water.
Yeah.
And then there's no insulation there, so it just sits in the drywall and it turns into mold.
I find that most of the time you don't have a fan in the washroom.
Yeah, bathroom
The
fan.
bathroom
Yeah, if
fans,
there's no exhaust fan in the bathroom, that's another, very easily
Fixable.
issue, but people don't, right?
Yeah.
Like older homes, before the 90s, if there was a window in the bathroom, you didn't need an exhaust fan. It wasn't a requirement.
Correct.
So after the 90s, even if you had a window, you still need an exhaust fan.
Correct.
So a lot of these houses I do, they don't have an exhaust fan because they have a window.
Yeah, because
But you're not
it
leaving
wasn't a
that-
cord back then.
It wasn't a requirement.
Yeah.
But now, like, you're not leaving your window open when it's minus 20 outside.
Yeah.
Installing a fan is like $500. It doesn't cost much.
You mentioned you're going to do inspection condo right after this. A lot of people think, why you need a home inspection in a condo? Like, can you elaborate why you recommend a home inspection when you're purchasing a condo?
When I first started out, like 12, almost 13 years ago, I used to do maybe one condo a month, maybe.
Okay.
Right now, like today I had 2 condos today. Tomorrow I have 4.
So that's mean the condos are moving a lot. Okay.
Condos, I guess, yeah, they are. I guess it's a good time to buy condos
condos,
because there's so much inventory, and the prices of condos have dropped so much in the last 6 months. So now I usually do I would say maybe about 15 condos a month.
Oh, wow.
Usually, when I do, I do mostly residential.
But a lot of
I would
condos.
say, yeah, a lot of condos. Like tomorrow I have 4 all over, 2 in Mississauga, Etobicoke, and 1 in Scarborough. So the reason I find a lot of people doing condos are more often now, it's like, I mean, you're still spending $500,000, 600, 700, 800, maybe $1 million on a condo, right?
Yeah.
So for you to spend $300-400 for a peace of mind, one, like a lot of first-time buyers, they have no idea what to look for, what to do, no maintenance, right? So one, they're getting educational knowledge on maintenance and what to look out for. And then 2, you have somebody that's an expert looking at it for you and then advising you. So a lot of people do say like, oh, do you need to really inspect a condo, right? Unless you're going to go and check every single power outlet in the condo yourself.
Yeah.
Run all your appliances.
So those are things you look for in the condos. Okay.
Yeah, so the common areas we don't check in the condo because that's maintained by the condominium corporation, right? So anything inside the unit we check. So you're talking about all the appliances. So running a cycle on the dishwasher, washing machine, the dryer, checking, making sure the water pressure is good. Hot water and cold water are working from like all the sinks, right? So usually it's just bathroom sinks and kitchen sinks in a condo. and then making sure that you have your HVAC working, right? So your heating and cooling.
Yep.
There's been times I've done inspection in a condo and the heating system's not working at all.
Oh, really?
It's not working.
That means the central system is not working.
No, so for that individual unit,
the
so
unit,
they
okay.
might have like a heat pump or a fan coil, but like the fan is working, but then it's not producing heat. So people don't know sometimes. Like they go in and they're like, oh, it's working. I could hear it working.
Yeah, but
Then
you're
I'm
not getting
taking
that.
temperature readings from the vents, and I'm like, something's wrong because it's just air blowing, but it's supposed to be heat or hot air blowing, right? So then a fan coil is some condominium corporation is responsible. Sometimes it's the owners. And if it's the owners, you're looking at $3,000-$4,000 to replace that unit.
Okay.
And then obviously, you got to check all your appliances, make sure it's working. Electrical is all working. And then even though the windows are a responsibility of the condominium corporation, you want to make sure there's nothing wrong with it. If there is, then you have to put in a work order. And then that takes 2-3 months for a condominium to come and
done.
check. And then we're like, okay, yeah, we're going to replace it or repair it or whatever the case is, right? So we do all of that and then tell you, okay, this is what you're buying. This is what you need to expect. The other thing is like I said, we usually use a thermal imaging camera. So that will actually show you if there is an ongoing or current leak or any moisture or water sitting in the ceilings from the above unit. Right?
Okay.
Sometimes I look and it looks perfectly fine. And then I look through the camera and I see something completely different because it sees things that the naked eye can't see, right?
Yeah.
So unless you have all these equipment, like even me, like if I do not have the necessary tools and equipment, I will not be able to do a thorough job, right? So this technology and tools make my life easier as well. And, it just helps me go the extra mile and be able to, do a better job for my clients. So... condo inspections usually only take about an hour.
Yeah. But it's well worth it given all the facts
there's leaks. I find leaks in condos all the time. I find, toilets that don't work or toilets you flush it and it just like water flows out of it. Leaks underneath kitchen sinks, bathroom sinks.
It could have been a previous tenanted property as well. You don't know how it's been maintained.
It's not, there's always something I find in like today, the one I just came from one right now. That one, the dishwasher, drain line and stuff wasn't connected, right? So we ran it, and then it was and then when it was draining, it started leaking right all into the underneath the sink.
Wow. Okay.
Right? So we were there trying to like clean up all the water. It was a vacant unit, and then one of the light bulbs weren't working. The lights weren't working. So sometimes it's just light bulb, but sometimes these new ones are full LED lights, so there's no bulb to change. You have to change the whole fixture, right?
Yeah.
So
those things are costly, like it's kind of up.
Yeah, it adds up, right? Yeah. So and it was a 406 square feet 1-bedroom condo I did, but the guy wanted to do it. He's like, I don't know what I'm looking for. I don't know how to check it. And the realtor's like, I don't want to take on that liability and responsibility. Like I want my client to make sure he's happy with this purchase. So he's like, here, call this guy. So I went in and I did it, and we found about 3 defects with the condo. So now they're gonna go back to the seller and say, fix this, and this. Like it wasn't expensive, maybe.
But at least it's taken care of before you move in.
Exactly. Like it was, I would say maybe 500 to like 750 to fix all those things. But now like the buyer's like, okay, well I want all these things fixed because
you're moving into the proper home.
Exactly. Right. So it's not a big investment. Like you're not spending a lot of money. Like what you're spending a lot of money is the actual purchase. Right. You're looking at like $500,000 at least, right? So for you to spend $300 to $400 to it's nothing. It's peanuts. But
and also your peace of mind.
And the peace of mind, like your peace of mind, and is the main thing, right? Okay, there's nothing wrong. I'm good, like right. Sometimes I go and I find absolutely nothing wrong with the house, right? I'm like, I wish I can tell you, I found this, but most people are like, no, I'm happy. Like I'm buying, buying a good home with no issues. Thank you very much. Yeah. Me, I'm always trying to find something so I can say, hey, you're paying me for this.
Well worth it.
I found this for you, or I found this defect. So, but sometimes I find nothing.
Well-maintained homes.
Yeah, it's like some people are just very meticulous and they maintain it extremely well. And then at that time I feel like awkward. They're like, hey, sorry, I didn't find anything, right? Yeah. But the buyers at that point are like,
happy.
No, like, we're happy that there's nothing wrong. Like, thank you very much, right? So, yeah.
Can you tell a little bit about your tools that you have, the thermal camera, and what other tools you have?
So the thermal imaging camera is probably my most
Used.
Most used makes my life easier. So that checks behind walls to see if there's any insulation missing.
Oh, insulation
If there's-
missing. Okay.
Yeah, right. So that basically, if there's insulation missing, there's cold spots inside the ceilings and walls, right? And then it will show me. I can take temperatures from the vents. So certain vents will be blowing, different temperature. So one room might be blowing hot air at like 40 degrees versus another room might be blowing at like 30 degrees.
Yeah.
So there is a temperature
Imbalance.
imbalance, right? So then you can get air balancing done. Usually the room furthest away from the furnace is usually gets less airflow just because of physics, right? And gravity, whatnot. So this helps me, kind of narrow those things down. And then if there's water sitting in the ceilings, I can find it. And then sometimes I can follow where the water is a tricky thing. It might be leaking 15 feet away, but it might not make its way out
In a different spot.
on a different spot. So you think the leak is here, but you're like,
But
well,
it's
there's
not there.
nothing there. It might be leaking from there, the initial source of the leak, but it might be coming out from there. So thermal camera, I can actually follow
You
the
can trace
path
it.
of the
You can
water
trace
to
it.
be like, okay, this is where I see most of it. So it's coming from here, right? So the thermal imaging camera is probably my most used and, life-saving tool. And I've had it, this is my third one I bought. They're only good for like 5 years.
Okay.
So this is my third one that I've invested in. And then after that, like the thermal imaging camera also looks for like moisture, humidity, and everything as well, right? Heat loss. And then we have like moisture meters that actually tell you the exact percentage. So the thermal camera will show you, okay, there's moisture in this
here.
area, right? So it depends how high the moisture is in drywall for it to be, a major defect or not. So then we have moisture meters that will kind of say like, okay, this is 99.9% moisture, which means it's an active leak or something in there. And then it can be a potential for mold growth in the near future. So the moisture meter, and then I have a formaldehyde tester, right? So formaldehyde and air quality. So basically takes samples of the air inside the house, and then it'll tell me if there is, if there's any toxins in the air, any formaldehyde in the air, right? Or if it's safe to even be in that area. And then also an EMF, which is the electromagnetic field. So if a house is within I usually say within a 200-meter radius, you should check it for EMF, which is electromagnetic field radiation. So high tension wires, transformer, hydro stations. And there are a lot of new houses, even old houses where, they'll have those Paris-looking, Eiffel Tower-looking things running like right in their backyard. So if you're in a close proximity of those things, it's not proven as a health hazard, but I have a lot of doctors and scientist clients that refuse to buy a house
those
like
houses,
that.
eh?
And usually they see it because they saw the house during the nighttime for the showing, right? And then when we go do the inspection, they go to the backyard, they're like, oh, yeah, we can't buy this house because of this. And I'm like, why? And then, this was like 6-7 years ago. So then I was like, I got curious and I did my own research. And then I found more and more people started calling and saying, hey, do you check for EMF? So then I invested in an EMF tool that basically takes the readings and it tells if it's a safe distance or how high the electromagnetic field reading is in that area. So those are like the 4 main tools that I use.
So this definitely helps buyers to kind of give a peace of mind to get into the product or the house they want to be in, right?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Give us a worst house you inspected, the most default you find.
Worst house I've inspected.
We don't need the address. We just need the what
There's
you
been a
find
lot. There's been a lot, right? So some of them
something
it's
that's
just-
always stuck to your head.
There's one house that's always stuck. It's not the worst house. It's probably like the most creepiest house.
Creepiest house, okay?
The creepiest, like it just. There's 2. There's one that I did in Malvern. I found a snake in the attic, right? So that's one of these things that kind of.
That was
stuck with
unexpected
me.
at all.
Yeah, that was like that's one of those things that I
It's
I
always
don't think
stuck to your
I'll
head.
ever- Yeah, and that was probably a good I don't know maybe 7-8 years ago.
That goes in the books.
Yeah, that goes in the books. And then there was a house I inspected. It was a century home, like 100+ years old, and it had one of those climate attics. where the ladder comes down, you go in the attic, and then I actually found in the attic there was a steel bed, just a steel frame with handcuffs on it, on the steel frame. So
Goodness.
I don't know, and I was alone in that house before the clients came, and like it was already a creepy house to begin with. And then I went up there, and then I saw this steel frame all rusted with handcuffs. It was like somebody was, I don't know, held victim and tortured up there or something.
Did they end up buying it?
I think they did. I
Oh,
can't
they did.
remember. I think they did, but I refused to go in there once I saw it. I came back down, and then I waited for like the agent and the buyers to come. Then I went in there with them because that completely like freaked me out.
Absolutely.
So that's one of those things that I'll never forget. There was another house where I saw a little boy, but it was a vacant house, and that was in Whippy, and that was another creepy because I swear I know what I saw. It was it was a vacant house. I didn't know it was vacant. I got there early. I was doing the inspection. I went to the backyard, and then I was doing the backyard, and then I looked at the house, and through the patio door, I saw a white kid, blonde hair, white t-shirt, and blue shorts. I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years old. I saw him standing there inside the house. And then I kind of just did my thing. I was still doing it. And then, I finished the backyard, and then I went back to the front. And then that's when the agent came in. And then, he opened the door. We go in. And then I told him, I'm like, oh, I think people are home. And he goes, no, it's a vacant house. I was like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, it's a vacant house. We visited it before. And we went in there, and it was a vacant house. So I was like, I didn't tell the buyers that because I was like,
You would have killed it. That's a deal breaker right there.
yeah, I was like, that was one of those stories where I know what I saw. I'm not hallucinating, and that was, I know exactly.
That's pretty creepy.
Yeah, I saw the kid. I know what he was wearing, and it was a vacant house. So I was like, okay.
You didn't tell that to
that's
the buyer.
strange. No, I didn't tell them that. I saw a kid in here like 10 minutes ago before you guys got here. Because I didn't. I just kept working because I saw him in there. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just do my thing. So there's houses like that. And then there's other creepy houses, man. Like I've been to a lot of creepy houses where, it's usually when it's vacant, and then I get there early, and then the agent's like, oh, just go in and start, right? I'm running late.
Yeah.
There's one in South Pickering. But actually close to your house.
I was gonna
It's
say.
actually close to your house. It was actually down the street from your house. I can't remember the exact address.
I don't want to know, TJ.
It was one of those houses you go in, and they had all those those old dolls all dressed up. They had like 50 of those dolls all over. It was old vacant house, or the owners moved out or died or something. And I just kept hearing creaking, man. Like it was just creaking noises. And then I'm looking around, and I see all these little Annabelle-looking dolls everywhere. And I was like, oh my God, like what am I doing here, right?
You're by yourself.
So, I'm by myself, right? And I'm just like, and then I called the agent. I'm like, dude, like, where are you, man? Like, how far are you?
I need some help.
Because like I'm not comfortable
Yeah.
sitting in this house. And it was like one of those hoarder houses too.
Yeah.
There's like books and old newspaper clippings and articles like in those banker boxes like stacked up. So these are just creepy houses. And then I mean, I've seen them all, man. Like, I've done like 9,000 plus houses.
So I'm sure you went through a lot of houses.
I've seen, like $10 million like
Mansion.
amazing mansions, like, like beautiful with elevators and car elevators and elevator garages and stuff like that. And then
That's still $300 for the $400 for the inspection on those houses.
no, man. Those are usually more just because like the square footage is so much bigger. It takes
I know,
takes
I figured.
longer. I've been into houses with like $500,000 like wine collections,
Right.
like $500,000 just wine cellar, and I'm like, like most houses cost that, right? Or at this time, but there's a lot of scary houses, like hoarder houses, man. I've been to houses with like, like 8, 9 dogs, right? And it's just filthy, like shit everywhere, dog shit everywhere, and like you can't even breathe. Like it just reeks the minute you go inside. It just stinks so much, and I have to like put a mask on or like walk around like that because I'm just like, how are you people living in here, right? Like it's so nasty. There's been
You get to
times
see
where-
like a people's different lifestyles and everything.
yeah, like it's like I've posted so many videos on my IG, like some of hoarder houses, and it's just unbelievable how people can live. Like I've been to houses where this kid had, no word of a lie, his bedroom had, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 empty Domino's pizza boxes, and probably
Wasn't
like
even cleaned
20
up.
No,
Was this just in the room?
stacked. It was just stacked in like bunches, and he just sat there and he had his whole video game set up, like just
This
gaming.
tells a lot about the kids, eh?
And then the 2 liter Coke bottles, like probably 20, 30, just like empty ones, just all over, garbage, tissue paper. Like it just eats, and then just leaves all the garbage, everything, just disgusting. But he's there, like his little workspace is clean for his gaming.
That's it.
The whole house was like that. It wasn't just a kid. It was like the whole family, like the whole house. Like me and the agents had to kind of tiptoe around to the places, and then it was tenanted.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Oh, sorry, the house is a mess." I'll never forget this. We opened. She goes, "Oh, sorry, the house is a mess. Like we just threw a baby shower for my daughter on the weekend, and we just haven't cleaned up." And we're like
Sure.
looking around, like, lady, like this is years of not cleaning up. Like this
Baby
didn't-
shower 10 years
this
back.
this didn't happen 2 days ago. Like
Got
that's
it.
how disgusting. Like some of these people.
You had some good stories, man.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's disgusting.
So, TJ, last thing, what advice you can give to the audience when they're purchasing a home? What they need to look for? How they can protect themselves from having issues after they move?
Issues after they move in. So there's a few things that even when we do an inspection, inspection is usually when you buy the property, right? You're not going to take possession of that house until 30, 60, 90.
It could be 90. Right now, it's even longer closing.
Yeah, 120 days, right? So between that time of the inspection and 2, 3, 4 months, a pipe might start to leak, right? Like a shower might start to leak from underneath. A toilet might stop working. So, and things like this happen because people call me after 2, 3 months. They're like, "Hey, we just moved in and this
But
is
we are
not
having this
working.
problem."
And did you check it?" And I'm like, "Of course I checked it." I'm like, "You were there with me. It's on the report, right?" So like we flush toilets at least 3 times, make sure that it's flushing, it's not clogged, and the water doesn't continuously run after flushing the toilet, right? So these are things that, and it's on the report saying what we did, like what are we going to be doing, right? So and most people are understandable. They're like,
Yeah.
"You know what? Yeah." Or
It
like,
happens.
"Hey, we moved in and then one of the burners is not working." Right? Like, "Did you check it?" And I'll be like, "Look at your picture. You're going to see all 4 burners are red in the picture."
Yeah.
So usually when I do it, I always take pictures of like appliances or water taps or whatever in running motion.
Yeah.
So then when they see it, they'll be like, "Okay, the water was
It was
running."
working.
Right? So that's how I kind of protect myself and to tell them that I did run the shower. I did run the dishwasher or whatever, right? So people call me all the time and say, "Hey," and unfortunately, like, there's nothing you can do at that point because the inspection is usually at the time of. But if it was a major defect, right? If it's something electronic that broke down, it's different.
Yeah.
Because that can break down tomorrow. It could be like a brand new car, it's fine, and then the next day it doesn't start. You don't know why. I'm like,
Okay.
it was working yesterday, like I didn't get into an accident, right? So electronics is hard, and then even sometimes like plumbing, like a little leak or something, or sometimes the pipe just decides to burst for no reason.
Or the weather changes.
Yeah, weather changes, stuff like that. So there was a property, actually, it's good that you said that. I did a property, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 years ago, and during that time, they were living there, everything, it was fine. Shortly after the inspection, the owners moved out, and it was winter, and the closing happened 3 months later. They shut off all the heat and the water. Okay?
They want to save some money.
They want to save some money in the winter. So the buyers went for their visit, and then they're like, "Oh, like,
What happened?
before closing, they went for their visit. The house is so cold, so they turned on the heat and then the water, whatnot. And then they turned on the water, and then the pipes just bursted. And then they called me and said, "Hey, there's like water coming from the thing," so we shut it back down. And then I'm like, okay, well, did you check it? I said, of course, like if, or else the water would have came down the day we did the inspection,
Yeah.
right? And then they went back to the sellers and said, you guys shut off the heat. The whole house pretty much shifts when the,
Yeah, there's
everything
no heat
shrinks. There's no heat. Water lines, shift and burst. So then they had to spend, I think, close because it bursted, damaged the ceiling, damaged
drywall.
the flooring, everything. So now the buyers are like, we're not taking possession like this. Like, this
Until
is
you
not
fix
our
it.
house yet. You got. So I think the sellers ended up of spending about $30,000 to fix these damages.
Could have been like a $30 worth of heating cost.
Yeah, yeah. But so people do stupid things like this. So then, we went, like I said, okay, I can't come. They call me like, oh, are you able to come now? I'm like, no, I'm working. I can't come now. But if you want, make another appointment for tomorrow, the day after, I'll come. So then I went and I evaluated it and I asked them these questions like, was it off? They said, yeah, this was off. Everything was off. We turned it on and then we heard like the pipe rattling and then we heard like a burst and then we heard water running. We didn't know where. And then a few minutes later, it started coming through the ceiling. So I said, yeah, because the heat was off and it's freaking minus 20 outside. So
Yeah.
like,
What do you expect?
what do you expect, right? So then these guys just told the lawyers and then that happened. And then speaking of, you were saying about mold, right? So I have mortgage brokers calling me all the time. Right before closing, they get the appraisal done.
Is they mention about the mold?
Yeah, so the appraiser goes in and sees like a black spot, dark spot on the wall, ceiling, and then he's just like, oh, there's mold there. So
Yeah.
now the lender's like, okay, we're not
Or they
funding
freak out.
this. We're not funding this until we know what this is. We need like a clearance report. So then mortgage brokers all the time call me like a day or 2 days before closing or a week before closing and like, hey, can you go in here and see how much it is or what the problem is and give us a report? So I'll go in there and I'll look and I'll say, okay, yeah, there is mold or there isn't. Okay, this is how much it's going to cost to fix, approximate ballpark. And then I give them the report and then they give it to the lender and then now the lender is satisfied and then they proceed with the funds. Yeah. So I get that all the time from mortgage brokers because like the deal is almost not going to close because an appraiser decided to go in there and throw a wrench in the deal, right?
And the minute they see, like, mold is a bad word in the lending industry.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
It's
yeah.
a bad word.
Yeah. As soon as you hear mold, asbestos,
Yeah.
stuff like that, like lenders like freak out right away and they want, there's been times
Clarification.
where I've had like, mold in the attic and then the seller gave a price reduction.
Yeah.
Right? So then they're like, okay, we'll get it fixed. They give a price reduction. Now the lender goes, oh no, we need to have this fixed before
We're closing.
we close it. And then they're like, yeah, but it's not our house yet. We can't go in and start fixing things until we take possession. So there's been times where they're like, are you? And then, the seller is kind enough, like, okay, we'll allow you to go in. So then the seller or the buyer now has to pay for like a mold remediation guy to go in there prior to him
Closing
owning
the
the house. And then the mold remediation guys go in there, fix it, and then give a mold remediation certificate. Now they provide that to the bank, and then they move. So, all kinds of craziness happens, right? Like when there's mold, like sometimes they won't fund it, even though it's not a big deal. And then appraisers, make it worse sometimes. Right? I know they're doing their job, but sometimes it's literally like so minor. Like you can get a bleach and water on a cloth and just wipe it, and it'll be gone. Right? But sometimes it's not as easy as that. So I've done a lot of these clearance reports where I go in and I evaluate, take pictures, say what the problem is, what the cost remediation will be approximately, and then the lender is satisfied. Even brand new houses, I do the 30-day inspections, 1 year Terrion inspections.
You mean the pre-construction?
The pre-construction deliveries.
They have the most amount of problems.
Yeah, like you'd be amazed. Like people are like, oh, it's a brand new house. I don't need to.
That has the biggest
But
deficiencies.
they will, there are so many unfinished product, unfinished things, insulation missing behind walls, and then the walls are already up, right? So I go and, do a lot of 30-day and 1 year Terrion inspections all the time for subdivisions. Usually when I do it in one, they tell the neighbor and then the neighbor and then the neighbor. I end up
they don't know what to look for, right?
They don't know what to look for. A lot of these new homes are like, we don't know what to look for.
Yeah.
So I end up doing like 30, 40, 50, like in New Seaton, I've probably done like 200-300 because like the neighbor tells their neighbor and then their neighbor and then and then they have like their chat groups. Right?
The community
chat group. They're like, oh yeah, we just moved in. We're having so much problem. Like, oh, call this guy. He did our inspection. Yeah. So I get a lot of new subdivisions where, I go in and do these new builder warranties. And honestly, get it done, because all of the things you find, the builder has to fix it for you,
Yeah.
right? Especially within the first year. After the first year, it's only mechanical things, right? So they're not going to fix it
But
for you.
small deficiencies.
Yeah, small defects. So even like drywall problems, all of that stuff, like, you know, if you don't know what you're looking for, just hire an inspector. I got into this business because I hired a guy to do my 1-year inspection in 2009. I didn't know anything about houses in 2009. I hired a guy. I think at that time paid him $500, and he was there for like 3 hours. He wrote everything down, and he just gave me the list. He said, "Okay, fax this to Terion." At that time, it was faxes.
Yeah.
Right? Fax this to Terion, fax this to your builder, and then they'll contact you and come and get all this fixed. And I was like,
That's easy.
"That's pretty good." Like, you know, 3 hours, like $500 cash, like.
Yeah.
And that intrigued me, and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty good. I like hands-on stuff." So I actually looked into it after me hiring a home inspector to do my very first home in 2009, and then that's how I got into this industry. Is I studied for it. I ended up buying a franchise, and then I had to go do training and educational courses and everything through the franchise. And after that is when I got into this business in 2011 September.
That leads into the question, TJ. Is there an association that controls the home inspectors?
So there's a lot of bodies, but in Ontario, it's not a licensed field.
Okay.
So like, you know, here mechanics, you have to have a license, right? Realtors, you have to have a license. In Alberta and BC, you have to have a license
To be a home inspector?
To be a home inspector. They've been talking about bringing it to Ontario since I became a home inspector in 2011.
Okay.
They still haven't. So how do you kind of know if the guy you're hiring is qualified, right? You should know and make sure that they have errors and omissions and liability insurance. So for you to even get that, you need to provide certain paperwork and everything to the insurance company for them to even be able to.
So there's an insurance
insure it.
company, they do errors and omissions.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of insurance companies out there that actually insure home inspectors. There's like maybe 2 or 3. Most people don't insure home inspectors because it's such a large liability.
Correct.
So, you know, make sure that they have errors and omissions insurance, liability insurance. Then see if and for you to even get that, you need to be part of an association, and you need to have certain credentials
Correct.
for those insurance companies to also insure you.
Recognize you.
Right? So, or else they won't even insure you. So make sure they have insurance and see what there's so many associations out there. There's like Ontario, Registered Home Inspectors of Ontario. There's Internachi, which is like the North American organization for home inspectors. And then there's something called CMI, which is Certified Master Inspector. So that's what I am. So that's that's higher than that's like a real estate broker, a real estate sales representative versus a real estate broker.
Got it.
Right? They're just more qualified because they've done more education, more experience, whatever. So I'm a CMI certified master inspector. So you need to have like 3,000 inspections done before you can become one, and you need to be part of like certain organizations. So make sure, just vet and see if they're part of organizations. And nowadays, honestly, a lot of people Google reviews.
Yeah.
Right? You go, because
that's a big thing now.
It's a big thing. It's a huge thing, right? So I just literally started doing it, I think last May. I just, after inspections, I just say, hey, here's a Google, please leave me a review with whatever. So that's the thing. So in the last 6 months, I would say, I got a lot of calls from Google. Like, I don't know who these people are. I'm like, where'd you find my number? Google. And they're like, oh, we just found you on Google and you have good reviews, so we just called you, right? So Google reviews, I mean, if somebody has 5 or 10 reviews, it might be fake reviews, but the minute you see like more than 100, 150 reviews, they can't all be fake. And then especially when you start seeing it from different areas and different clients and stuff, then you kind of know, right? So Google reviews is a good thing. And then just the credentials, right, to see. Because unfortunately, anybody can buy these tools and say, I'm a home inspector.
Because there's no association.
There's no association. There's nothing, right? And if you're part of an association, great. That kind of recognizes that
you are valid individual.
Yeah, that association did take, certain information, your credentials, your educational qualifications, all that. And then they let you be a member there, right? So at least you're
This is a little bit different.
Yeah. Exactly.
TJ, if someone want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get hold of you?
You guys can follow me on Instagram. It's TJ the Home Inspector, all no space, nothing. So you guys can see my creepy videos and my interesting houses. Sometimes you'll see.
Do you have a video of the little boy?
No, no, I don't have the. I don't have a video of the little Casper that I saw, unfortunately.
So Instagram is the best way to
Yeah,
get
Instagram. People reach out, or you can just reach out to me directly. 647-680-0260. That's my direct line. You can call me, text me, or iInspectgta@gmail.com is my email. But phone or text is the fastest way to get a hold of me, and I respond the fastest.
Perfect.
So,
TJ, thank you for your time.
no problem. Thanks for having me, bro.
No problem.